Good morning, everybody, and welcome to another Vintage Cube draft. Now, we have multiple good cards in this pack, and I'm not sure which one to take. I can speculate on Blightsteel Colossus. If we get Tinker, then we have the combo. Although, Blightsteel only goes in a few decks. I could take Force and try and cut blue, but Tezzeret is a pretty decent reason to be running blue in this pack, although there's not a lot of blue. I could take Noble and try and cut Dorks and go green, though I just did that, so I think I'm going to try Force of Will, and we're going to see what happens. Force of Will playable basically in any blue deck. We could play Storm, we could play Control, we can play Counterburn, we can do lots of stuff with it, so hopefully we get some blue cards. My biggest problem with Vintage Cube is when you try and draft blue, blue dries up pretty quick because a lot of the high power cards in Vintage Cube are blue. I will take Vendilion Click. I think we're going to try and continue to cut blue. I see a couple of rituals in this pack. We were going to try and go Storm. There's also a Scalding Tarn, which I would not mind picking up, though. Vendilion Click may table. Scalding Tarn probably will not. And I think if I was going to draft just exclusively to try and win, I would take Scalding Tarn. But Click is so powerful that I think I'm just going to take Click. All right. In this pack, there are basically no blue cards. So, we have options. We can take Commit to Memory, which is a very heavy counterspell / draw 7. It's a really powerful effect, especially to have if you're going to be like high-tiding or trying to do mono blue Storm. There's Night's Whisper. If we were going to try and do Storm, it's a great card to have in Storm. There's Stoneforge Mystic, which could give us a win condition if we were playing blue-white. Or there's Swords, which is an excellent, probably the best removal spell in Vintage Cube, arguably. There are others on that power level that are potentially better given the situation. We could try and draft Control. It's been a while since I've done that. Alternatively, we could take like Seasoned Pyromancer and, like I said, try and go Counterburn. Like, is it? I think I'm going to go Swords. We'll see what happens in the coming packs here. Okay, so in this pack, there is a Jace the Mind Sculptor, which we are definitely in the colors and set up to take. There's a Plateau, Lion's Eye Diamond, Dark Ritual, Condemn. I think I'm going to take Jace because he's just that good, usually. Especially if we're set up to do heavy control, which every single pick that I have right now goes in a control deck. There's still some chance that we could do Storm if like Dark Ritual, Cabal Ritual, all of that, Night's Whisper, all of that stuff is tabling. But I'm going to go with Jace. And we're going to draft like we're blue-white control, probably. So I have to make a little bit of a decision here. I could take Manamorphose. If I wanted to try and force Storm. I think I'm going to take Impulse because that's one of the best control cards we've got here. Armageddon is very strong, but generally only if you stick a threat on board or have a bunch of artifact mana. And right now we don't really have a good setup for Armageddon. If it tables, I would likely take it. I don't think this is a Dark Confidant deck because we are going to be kind of higher on the converted mana costs section of our deck than Dark Confidant really allows for. Thassa's Oracle, it's not really an Oracle deck. I'm going to take Impulse. Impulse is really strong if you have access to a bunch of 2-mana counterspells, which hopefully we would if we were going to play blue-white. I could take Soulfire Grandmaster, and if I do, we have an incredibly powerful like loop with Force of Will. We can pay 4 mana, cast a Force of Will with its alternative cost, put it back in our hand, potentially Force of Will again. If we get a Time Walk or a Time Warp, we can go infinite with it. I wouldn't mind taking Mystical Tutor. That would go in like a Stormy list. It's probably a little bit higher power level because we can pick up things like a huge card advantage spell. Also, nobody takes Soulfire Grandmaster unless they already have the combo. I'm going to go with Mystical Tutor, just because it gives us some options. Now, in this pack, I could take Ravenous Chupacabra if I wanted to go Esper. I could take Spectral Possession if I wanted to stay blue-white. Our only white spell right now is Swords. I could go blue-red control and take Chain Lightning, which is pretty reasonable. I could also take Thousand Year Storm if I wanted to go do hilarious storm things. I think Chain Lightning is our best bet. It's the cheapest thing we've got in this pack that goes with us, and it's a very powerful effect, so I wouldn't mind having it. Also, if Thousand Year Storm tables, we can do hilarious Thousand Year Storm things. I like Land Tax. It's incredibly powerful. It gets you a huge amount of card advantage, especially if you get behind on lands. I could take Pyretic Ritual and then start seeing if we can go into Storm. I know, like, Land Tax is ridiculously sweet and strong, but Land Tax is not really my style. I would much prefer to go Storm, but I'm going to take Land Tax and we'll see what happens. Baneslayer, like, I'm going to try and draft a decent control deck. Baneslayer is a great top-end threat, can gain us a ton of life versus aggro. We have Ravages of War, which is an alternate Armageddon, but we haven't had any mana rocks or anything that would survive the Armageddon. I'm going to take Baneslayer. Someone took Cabal Ritual out of this pack, so the Storm stuff, not likely going to table. I think Flicker Wisp is what I'm going to take here. I could take Desperate Ritual, probably not. Could take Goblin Rabble Master. It would be a decent threat. There might be some stuff we can do with Flicker Wisp, like Flickering Click, just to get another look, that sort of a thing. So I like Seasoned Pyromancer. Adanto Vanguard is a little bit more aggressive than I want to be, but I think I'm going to take Commit to Memory because we don't have a ton of interaction yet, and I would like to have a lot more if I'm going to try and play a control deck. Brim decent aggro. I could take Plateau and help splash Chain Lightning. I think I would rather have Condemn. Shatter Skull Smashing is decent. I will take Shatter Skull Smashing. I don't think this is an Honor of the Pure deck, and I don't think this is a Rampaging Ferocidon deck. I'll take Ferocidon, put it in the side, and I'll take Spectral Procession. So I don't know if I'm playing red yet. We're definitely not playing Storm. We are going to go pretty hard into blue-white control. Hopefully, so what we're hoping for most is going to be things like, well, I guess Mox. I will definitely take a Mox. I was going to say, like, Teferi and 2-mana counterspells is kind of where we want to be. But you can't not take a Mox, even if it's off color, right? It's power 9. And this might give us a reason to play red. So, I'm going to put Shatter Skull Smashing in the side, because if I play it, I'm going to play it in a slot where I would play a Mountain, usually. Alright. So in this pack, man, we could have had a really sick Storm deck. I'm just now realizing, because there was a Tendrils in that pack, and we had the option to, like, first pick all of the Storm rituals. The problem is, if Storm cards are not wheeling, you are going to have a bad time playing Storm. Like, pack 1, pick 1 Tendrils, like, maybe I would consider going into Storm. But, like, there was a Yawgmoth's Will. We could have had all of the black rituals, and it would have been pretty good. I think the best card for us in this pack is either Shelldock Isle or Colonnade. And I like Colonnade just a little bit more right now because we are playing white and blue, and this fixes for us at the bare minimum. And we don't have a ton of turn 1 plays, like Land Tax is something we do want to play on turn 1. The rest of our 1-mana spells are going to be stuff we're probably going to be reactive with. So I'm going to take Colonnade. It's kind of important to be taking much higher on the list, fixing if you're going to play a control deck, or like a 3-color deck especially. Elspeth Sun's Champion is a fantastic top-end card. So is Lingering Souls. I wouldn't mind taking Marsh Flats, although we did pass like Plateau. I'm going to take Elspeth here. All right. Liliana Death's Majesty is... I don't really want to go Esper. Our color costs are going to be pretty extreme. Bitter Blossom, I would much rather pick Bitter Blossom over Liliana, but like I said, I don't think I'm going to be playing black at all. I'm going to take Venser, because Venser is sort of a counterspell, as well as a Disperse, as well as a Boomerang and a Flash threat. And Venser is pretty great in a control deck. We're looking pretty hard to see if we can find Karakas, because Karakas in this deck would be crazy. Like we have Venser, Click, which are fantastic stuff to have when you have stuff like that. Elish Norn would be pretty decent top end. Gideon Blackblade might be better. Kaya is great, but like I said, I don't think I'm playing Esper. I'm probably going to play blue, white, red. I could take Turnabout and just like tap my opponent out, which like potentially could be good. I think I'm going to go with Gideon. All right, there's a Wrath of God. Generally, if you're playing control, you want at least one Wrath. Alternatively, taking Looter here would be great because we could cycle away cards we don't need. Though that's a little bit better in Reanimator and Storm, I think. Wow, we could have even had Dark Petition. I would have had the craziest Storm deck if I just tried to force Storm this draft. Well, like, there's no way to know that, right? So I'm going to take Wrath of God. Okay, we have Trinket Mage, which can get us our Mox. There's a Wear and Tear, which is a really powerful effect in our deck. I could take Glorybringer and have another top-end play. There's a Wasteland, which would also be great, because like Wasteland is just a powerful effect. I already have one Wrath. The Mirari Conjecture, if I get like Time Walk, Time Warp, or an Ancestral Recall in pack 3, the Mirari Conjecture is great. This card is just like generally not that great though. I think I'm going to take Wear and Tear. If I had a Black Lotus or a Soul Ring, I would definitely have gone for the Trinket Mage. Dreadhorde Arcanist, we have Swords, we have Chain Lightning, we even have Mystical Tutor. I think this card is crazy powerful. And it can keep us on the lookout for other good 1-mana plays. It's an excellent reason to play red. I would definitely take Gearhulk if it came around. which it generally does. It's not frequently high picked. Lyra is kind of like another Baneslayer. We could take her and just have better game if we go up against an aggressive deck. Chart, of course, is also good. We don't have a ton of early attacking creatures, but this is a very powerful card advantage spell. Sower of Temptation is just a mind control effect that can be killed, and mind control effects are very powerful. I think I'm going to go with Lyra Dawnbringer, just because we have Baneslayer already, though. I'll take Wall of Omens. We're not going to have enough mountains to make Koth great. Goblin Guide is too aggressive. Hollow Blade is good, but I don't want to be discarding cards. I think I would rather just have the Wall. Okay, now we have another interesting choice. We're going to have too many cards in our hand for Hazaret to be good. Avacyn seems great, being a flash angel. Is fantastic if we get more counterspells in pack 3, which curiously we haven't seen any of the cheap counterspells. I would take Lingering Souls, but I think Avacyn's great. We're going to do like Angel Control. Bitter Blossom is definitely the best card in the pack here. I don't really want an Elite Vanguard. I don't think I can really... I'm going to take Mutavault. I think it's the most playable card in our deck. I will take Kaya, put her on the side. I will take Lava Claw Reaches in case I decide to play Kaya, and we get forced to Copperline Gorge. We basically have enough playables to assemble a deck here. The only thing I would like is to get a few more counterspells, honestly. Okay, this is another tough pick. We have Midian, as in Middle Gideon. Elspeth Conquers Death it's fine. It's decent. We have Seachrome Coast, which is excellent fixing for us. Probably something I should consider, considering all of the double blue and double white spells. We also have access to Spell Pierce here, which is a fantastic cheap counterspell. It doesn't synergize with Arcanist that well, being a 1-mana spell, but it is very powerful just having access to this. Seachrome Coast is probably technically the pick I should go for here, because I already have enough playable cards. I kind of have to hope that Gideon comes around. So it's really, I think, between Seachrome Coast and Spell Pierce here. I'm going to go with Spell Pierce. Okay, Dak Faden is an excellent reason to be running red. The card's just so insane versus the high-power artifacts in Vintage. Boros Signet is reasonable. It would fix. It would help ramp. It does produce white for our big double white angels. But Dak Faden is just so much higher power level on average that I'm going to take him. Big Teferi is great. There's actual factual counterspell. Mana Tithe as well, we could meme. If I had a Sacred Foundry Plateau, I would take Wooded Foothills, but I'm going to go with Counterspell. Hopefully Teferi or Corrosive Portal Wheels. Both of those cards are insane in control decks, but I want a 2-mana Counterspell pretty badly. Unexpectedly Absent is a great answer. Opposition is crazy, but we do not have enough creatures to make it work. If I had taken Bitter Blossom and I was in Black, Blue, or Esper, Opposition would absolutely be the pick here. I think the pick is Thieving Skydiver or Unexpectedly Absent. I do have Spectral Procession, but I'm probably not playing it. I'm going to take Thieving Skydiver. Winds of Abandon is a great spell for us. Arid Mesa is decent fixing, though we don't have a duel that we can take with it. This could be a good Fire and Ice deck. I think I'm going to go with the Arid Mesa because I'm so low on fixing here. Lightning Bolt is great. It's another bolt that synergizes with Dreadhorde Arcanist. I wouldn't mind taking an Elspeth Knight Errant. Dark Dwellers would be okay, but not really what I want. Lightning Bolt's just too good. I am kind of still trying to justify red a little bit, and I think even if we get a really good control deck here, one of the biggest problems is we're not going to have enough fixing. So I sort of regret not taking that Seachrome Coast, but we'll see what happens. Expansion Explosion, Revel Arc, Stonecoil Serpent, Field of Ruin. Field of Ruin can be fixing, kind of, and it can be useful, especially if my opponent does have a problematic land like Gaia's Cradle and we're not dead to it immediately somehow. I don't really want to take Expansion Explosion. I like this card a lot more in Storm decks sometimes. Stonecoil Serpent's a threat, we can just play at any time, but it's better when you have Broken Artifact mana. I'm going to take Field, but I don't know if I'm going to run it or not. It might be based on whether or not my opponent is playing a lot of non-basics. We might bring it in, etc. Okay, in this pack we have Figure of Destiny, Phyrexian Revoker. I don't really know why Felidar retreats in this cube. There's also Thraben Inspector. Out of all of this, Phyrexian Revoker is kind of decent sideboard. Figure of Destiny we could play a tempo game with, and Thraben Inspector is a card advantage-y kind of creature, but not really control. I think I'm going to take Revoker and put it in the sideboard. Middle Gideon came around. Seachrome Coast did not. which is unfortunate. Cosima is card advantage, but I think I'm going to take Boros Signet here. It's going to help with our fixing. It's technically ramp. Big Teferi or Mana Tithe. Or Char. In all complete honesty, I think Char is probably the best spell out of this, but I really want to take Teferi because he's so strong. We do have a little bit of artifact ramp, so maybe we can get him out faster. And if he wasn't in the same pack as Mana Tithe, I would take Mana Tithe, but I'm going to take Teferi. I think I have a Copper Line Gorge. If I had gotten that Stomping Ground, I could have actually splashed for Renin 6 potentially. I'll take Opposition. It's really disrespectful to see Opposition go that late, because that card is just so insanely powerful. I know I didn't take it, but I was also not necessarily in the deck type to be taking it in pack 3. I mean, like, we have Elspeth, and we have Gideon, which all are planeswalkers that produce dudes, right? And I guess now we sort of have some earlier game creatures, but okay. Let's take a look at what we're dealing with here. I think between Baneslayer and Lyra, if I'm not running both, I'm probably running Lyra, because she interacts with Avacyn. I don't think I'm playing Spectral Possession at all. I am going to play Force, even though I'm pretty light on blue cards, simply because I think not playing Force in this format is a mistake, if given the option. And it's a little more reasonable. It's not like the other deck where I tried to play Force and I only had like 4 blue cards. I do kind of need to trim down the curve a little bit. Wear and Tear is technically a 1 or 2 mana spell. I think out of my 1 mana spells, Condemn is probably the worst. Mystical Tutor, we don't have many great Mystical Tutor targets, because it only grabs an instant or sorcery, and we don't have a high power instant or sorcery like Ancestral Recall. It is good with Arcanist, which is one reason why I'm still considering keeping it, because with Arcanist it's not really card advantage, but it's kind of like card advantage. I'm going to cut those cards. Arcanist is basically here to flashback lightning bolts and swords. So I need to cut 2 more cards at least, and I would like to drop the curve because we're really top-end heavy, which means probably cutting like a 4-drop or a 5-drop. Maybe I just play Avacyn, and we can bring in Baneslayer Lyra versus aggro, have it like heavy life gain. It's possible, like, with Wall of Omens doing the same thing. Wall of Omens is a card that's like okay to slow flicker with Flicker Wisp. Same with Venser and Click and whatnot. Counterspell I foresee as being a little bit hard to cast. I know I went out of my way to pick that card, but I probably should not have done that. I think out of all these cards, because I didn't get Karakas and I have enough other really good Planeswalkers, I'm going to cut Gideon Blackblade. And we are going to try running this as a deck. So we're going to play Mox Ruby as a mountain, Celestial Colonnade, the fairest Arid Mesa you've ever seen, and probably Shatter Skull Smashing as a mountain, even though it's probably going to be really hard to cast and the bolt might matter. Wants to run 3 mountains. I think I'm going to cut that down to 2, and I'm going to increase my blue count by 1, simply because we have so much double blue, and our duels are cards that tap for white anyway. I'm only running 15 mana sources. Oh, 16. Okay, so this is a mountain that lightning bolts me. I'm running 16. I curve out at 6, and I don't have a lot of card advantage, so I probably should find another land or run 41 even. I guess with like Boros Signet and Mox, maybe I can get away with it. Well, we have land tax. That's true, we have land tax. That's where our card advantage is going to be early. Okay, well, I think we have a Jeskai control deck, so let's go ahead and try this out. I will see you guys in round 1. Alrighty, round 1, here we go. I'd love to go first. We got land tax. Perfect. I don't think I'm going to sandbag, but we might run out of lands anyway, so... Oh, no! Turn off auto yields! Oh, thank you, F6 gods and opponent, for being merciful. There we go. Right, now we F6. Opponent starts mountain, passes. Interesting. We draw an Arid Mesa, so we will luckily be able to get a mountain. So I have to play either Bolt or Impulse, and I'm going to go with the Impulse, I think. We can Impulse for a second white land to have Gideon. Opponent has a Grim Lavamancer. Alright. It would appear that our opponent is mono-red of some variation or other, so let's Impulse on their end step. I'm going to take Colonnade, rest of the bottom, untap, we draw Teferi, play Arid Mesa, crack Arid Mesa, get a mountain, and we're going to go Dak Faden uptick, go looting, How do I hold all these planeswalkers? I don't really want to give up on Lightning Bolt. I think Elspeth is probably excessive, and I'm going to drop this island, I think. Alright, pass the turn. Opponent untaps. They play a mountain. They char Dak to kill him. Then they hit us for 1. We go to 18. Untap. Draw planes. I'm going to play Colonnade and pass. We're just probably going to Lightning Bolt this turn. Sulfuric Vortex. That's very concerning. We can tuck it with Teferi if we need to. But I think we're going to start with Gideon. I could play Archangel Avacyn here. I could also just play Teferi and uptick. It's kind of tough. I think we're going to start by playing Gideon and making dudes. See if our opponent is going to use any more burn on planeswalkers. We don't have a lot of ways to regain life, at least not in the main deck. We do have Lyra and Baneslayer, which we'll probably bring in game 2. And we'll probably also max out on Condemns and stuff. 3 mana, opponent plays a Rampaging Ferocidon, which is also a Players Can't Gain Life card. We untap, take 2, draw Spell Pierce. So I am going to uptick Gideon, go to combat, attack my opponent for 5. Opponent goes to 11. Play Teferi. Uptick Teferi. We draw Mox Ruby, which I'm going to play immediately. Pass to our end step, and I'm going to untap my 2 blue lands for maximum counterspell threatening. Alright, opponent untaps. They take 2. We cannot block Ferocidon because it has Menace. If this is a burn spell or a non-creature spell, it's going to get Spell Pierced. Spell Pierced, so good. So good. An opponent can attack whatever they want, but they're just going to die to Colonnade Gideon. Like, oh boy. Alright, time to bring in the angels. I'm going to drop Elspeth. I'm also going to drop Shatterskull Smashing for a regular mountain. We are going to bring in Condemn as well. I think dropping Counterspell is fine here. It's just going to be really hard to cast most of the time. And I don't really want Flicker Wisp. I maybe shouldn't be main decking Wear and Tear, but I think I drop Wear and Tear. This seems okay, so we'll run it like this. Okay, opponent gets to be on the play. Well, we can play a turn 1 Dreadhorde Arcanist. I'm gonna keep. We're gonna start Colonnade tapped. Bombat Courier. Alright. They attack us for 1. If I draw planes, I will play a planes first. We draw Wrath of God. Play Colonnade. It's unlikely my opponent has Hand Hate, so I'm not going to play out Mox Ruby just yet. Opponent plays another mountain. They've got a Steamkin. Actually, if I draw another white source, I may just Wrath. I could Impulse for 1. Oof. I'll play an island, and I think I'm going to try and just Impulse for a planes this turn. Because if I get it, this is definitely a board I want to Wrath. And my opponent won't expect it off of a Mox Ruby either. Most likely. I could even try and Condemn the Courier here. No, I'll let him have it. Okay, we're going to take 3. We go to 15. Alright, on my opponent's end step, we Impulse. I guess I'm going to take Chain Lightning here, just to have more cheap removal. Kind of sad we didn't see a planes. Rest of the bottom. Untap. We draw Swords. Alright, new plan. Chain Lightning, Steamkin. Play Mox Ruby. Play Dreadhorde Arcanist. Pass the turn. Opponent untaps. They draw something they're going to play immediately. A Braid. Alright, we lose our Arcanist. Hopefully they don't have another mountain, because then we get to kill this Courier for free. Well, relatively free. They gain 1 life out of it. Okay, Condemn the Courier. They gain 1. 4 cards are exiled forever. We draw a mountain. Play a mountain. Pass the turn. Opponent untaps. They go to combat. They attack for 1. I think I'm going to save Swords for a slightly higher priority target. We untap and draw Spell Pierce. Play a mountain, pass the turn. Incinerate our face. Okay. Opponent untaps. They're going to Faithless Looting. I could just Spell Pierce that, but I think I'm going to let them have it. I would much rather Spell Pierce an action spell, even though this is probably going to get them to 3 mana. They discard Hazoret and Sulfuric Vortex. Wow, alright. They go to combat. They don't attack, so they're looking to activate Lavamancer this turn. Alright, I'm going to regret this, but we're getting Lavamanned. Alright, we untap. We draw Venser. Pass the turn. Can use Venser to make a tempo play of some kind of. Opponent plays a mountain, does nothing else. I'd really like to have another island for Spell Pierce plus Venser. Well, kind of regret asking for that when a Plains would help me start attacking with Colonnade. Alright. Char. Well, I'm not going to let that happen. Opponent untaps. I would Venser a spell potentially cast on their turn, like Rabble Master. Opponent passes. We untap. We draw Dak Faden. Play Dak. Go looting. We get Lightning Bolt and commit. Commit to memory while powerful also seems like complete suicide. I'm gonna take commit because if they try and cast Rabble Master, we can actually put it back in their deck. I'm not a huge fan of discarding Bolt though because it's so efficient. I guess Bolt answers stuff permanently. I'm gonna drop commit to memory and Wrath. Pass the turn. We're gonna leave Venser back to deal with the token that gets produced. Okay, opponent plays a mountain. They Firebolt Venser. Okay, Rabble resolves, so Lightning Bolt Rabble before beginning of combat. Now we untap. We draw Teferi. Kind of a big deal. Play Teferi. Uptick to draw. Jeez. I am gonna loot. Dumping double land. Yeah, I really want Jace here. So pass to my opponent's turn. We're gonna untap Colonnade and a mountain. The problem is my opponent could potentially resolve some very scary spells. Shrine of Burning Rage probably isn't it. We draw Vendilion Click. So I think the goal here is uptick to Fairy, see what we draw. Island. I'm going to take Shrine of Burning Rage. Seems like a good thing to steal, because we don't really need to go looting right now. I'll play an island. We'll play Jace the Mind Sculptor, and I'm going to Fate Seal him to get out of bolt range, because I want Jace to survive. No, I want them to draw the mountain. Alright, pass the turn. Untap our islands. We know what they're drawing this turn, so pretty much regardless, they're going to have in hand what they want to have in hand here. They can play a mountain and flashback Firebolt on something. They play Birgi. I almost think you'd play the back half of this, but alright, you got it. Opponent is holding one unknown card. Well, cast Click. Let's take a look at what it is, shall we? Fire Blast. That's pretty good. You can take the Fire Blast and put it into your deck. We untap. Shrine of Burning Rage uptick. Opponent Lightning Strikes Dak. I get to float a red mana. Dak down. We draw a Boros Signet. Uptick to Fairy. Flicker Wisp. Brainstorm with Jace. Put back, I guess, Archangel Flicker Wisp. Play an island. Play a Boros Signet. Cast Big Gids. Oh, Middle Gideon. Midian. Make a dude. And, I think I'm going to pass. My plan is to ult to Fairy, flashback the Draw 7 spell, and exile all of my opponent's permanents. Alright. Opponent could not beat multiple resolved Planeswalkers. Sweet. I will see you guys in round 2. Alright, round 2, I would like to play first. Yeah, I think this is fine. It's going to be turn 3 land tax, hopefully. Which may matter because we don't currently have a third land. I don't like relying on the Signet to get white here, but it's okay-ish. Opponent Opponent starts Botanical Sanctum, so they're probably blue-green ramp / upheaval, and it would appear that that is indeed the case. Play Plains, and play land tax. You never know, they could explore, rampant growth, that sort of thing. Pass the turn. Now I know I could have played Boros Signet this turn and then just gone into Gideon next turn. This has also taken me off commit for a turn, but that was probably better than what I did. It could force my opponent to play weird. You never know. They could play like Dryad here and play another land, and then we'd be in the money. Wall of Blossoms. Opponent attacks us for 1. How rude. We take 1, untap, draw swords, play a mountain, play Boros Signet, pass the turn. Opponent untaps. I don't want to Swords a Mana Dork, but I will sword something really threatening. Ancient Tomb for our opponent. Garruk Wildspeaker. That's pretty good. Opponent gonna untap some lands. Another 4-mana creature. Questing Beast. That's gonna get swords. So opponent tapped Ancient Tomb twice, discarded a card, and then got a refund. We untap, we draw Plains. So play a Plains. Play Gideon. Make a dude. Pass the turn. Opponent untaps. So we want to draw a untapped land so we can play Elspeth next turn. 5 mana. Opponent untaps for a grand total of 8 mana. Really hoping this isn't a Woodfall Primus. Lotus Cobra. Land. Back up to 8 mana. Primeval Titan. In ways, that is worse. But it does give us a land tax trigger, which we can use to thin out our deck, get redundant copies of all of our colors of mana, such and such. Opponent does get a bunch more mana off of Lotus Cobra. I mean, if we get a Wrath of God, we're, like, good to go, right? Oh, gosh, Vannifar. Vannifar probably cannot be allowed to live. Come on, Wrath of God. So, land tax. We will use land tax's ability. Get a Plains, a mountain, and an island. Then we draw Flicker Wisp. Can I abuse Flicker Wisp in any way? Not right now. I can play Elspeth and downtick to kill Primeval Titan, which is like the only way that Primeval Titan would die this turn. Alternatively, I could commit Primeval Titan, or just leave up commit, I mean. Make a knight. I could play and flicker Gideon. I could play Flicker Wisp and flicker Gideon to get another knight. I don't actually think that's good enough. I'm going to play an island, and I think I'm just going to hold up commit. Vannifar, though, is potentially a huge problem. I would really like to draw Wrath of God. I may need to use memory to try and find it. You know, I totally forgot that was an option. Okay. I think this means we have to commit Primeval Titan. They can't activate Prime Speaker as an instant, so if they're going to attack with Prime Speaker, they're just going to pass the beginning of combat. Alright, beginning of combat. Go ahead and tuck away Primeval Titan. Opponent goes to combat. Attacks us, attacks us, attacks us. For a grand total of 14, we'll take it and go to 5. Opponent plays an Arbor Elf. We untap. Land tax. Absolutely going to use its ability to try and just get as many lands out of the deck as possible. We draw oh, the top deck gods smile upon us. So here's what we're going to do. Animate Gideon. Go to combat. Swing everything at Garruk. Hopefully they can't answer any of our creatures, and then just block the rest. Okay, Garruk going down. Now we play a Plains. Wrath of God. Gideon now survives the Wrath because he's indestructible. I don't think there's anything I actually want to flicker with Flicker Wisp, and my opponent got the main green creature with haste exiled, so it's not likely that's a thing that's going to happen. I think I'm going to wait to play Flicker Wisp. This opponent draws a card that is not Primeval Titan, and then scoops. Alright. So versus mono green, I probably want Condemn. That may be better than Flicker, or maybe better than Counterspell. Not Flicker Wisp. I think I'm actually going to cut Shatter Skull Smashing. As good as it can be versus Dorks, I think I'd just rather have Condemn and a regular Mountain in the deck. Oh, that doesn't work. That doesn't math properly, actually, because this is in the land slot. Condemn is not. Yeah, I think I'm gonna cut Counterspell. As good as it is, I think I'd rather have the onboard answers. We do not have double blue for Jace. This hand might be a little slow, but I like having the early Spell Pierce and the Mox. I'm gonna keep this hand. It might be a trap, but it's one of those things that's like, normally this hand would be like too good to mulligan, but we might get absolutely destroyed here if I don't draw another island and early game removal. Like if we draw a Lightning Bolt, Chain Lightning, this hand is great. Flicker Wisp is okay. We will start island, and my opponent is green-blue. Alright, pass the turn. They play an Ancient Tomb. They play Jiraga Tree Speaker. They will get to level it up. And because I did not start with a white land, I cannot play Flicker Wisp on turn 2. This is the problem with not having duels. So we really, really, really need to draw a Lightning Bolt. Or Swords. Commit doesn't really do it. Play a Plains. I will play a Mox. Pass the turn. At this point, we are saving the Arid Mesa for a post-Brainstorm fetch. Whatever they cast, I hope Spell Pierce counters it. Otherwise, we're in trouble. Caryatid. Why would you attack with this creature against someone... Oh, I guess they didn't know we were playing Condemn. I guess that's fair. Alright. We untap. Draw an island. I think we hold up Commit. Let's see what our opponent is doing, and then potentially Jace after the fact. Noble. Okay. Opponent goes to combat. Attacks us for 2. They play a forest. They have nothing. I'm going to commit Jiraga Tree Speaker. This puts it back in their deck, forces them to draw a subpar mana dork, denies them mana, potentially even gives us... Ooh, I do like Archangel Avacyn. Play Arid Mesa, and I think we're gonna Avacyn this turn. Opponent goes to combat, attacks us for 2. Fetch with Arid Mesa, get a Plains, cast Avacyn, block the dork with Avacyn. Okay, opponent has a 5 mana play. It's Deranged Hermit. Okay, so opponent gets to go wide. We can Wrath their board away with Flicker Wisp. If Flicker Wisp dies, then they play Wall of Blossoms to draw their mana dork. We draw Force of Will. Play a Mountain. Play Flicker Wisp. Take out a token. Go to combat. Hit our opponent for 4 in the air. And they go to 12. So we have Force of Will if anything crazy happens. Opponent is going to pay the Echo cost on Deranged Hermit, but unless they have an answer for Avacyn, they basically just can't attack. Okay, opponent decided against paying for the Echo cost. Not sure why. There's a Scooz. Yeah, that's fine. They're going to eat Commit to Memory, but we don't need it. They eat Deranged Hermit. Alright. I think... Oh, so they're trying to get Scooz large enough that it would survive Avacyn flip, I think, is what's going on. I mean, if I draw a Lightning Bolt, I'm probably going to Lightning Bolt my own Flicker Wisp. Okay, opponent goes to combat, no attacks. We untap. We draw Gideon. Oh, I did that wrong. What am I thinking? Play Gideon. Make a dude. Go to combat. Attack for half their life total in the air. And we have Spell Pierce and Force pitching Jace to protect this hand. I think we got our opponent. Not a lot they could play that would get through our hand. It's like even if their hand was like Gaia's Cradle, Craterhoof, we could still force Craterhoof and that would be game. Yep. Man. This deck is good. I'll see you guys in round 3. Alrighty. Round 3. Here we go. Okay, we lost the die roll. We will be on the draw. No double blue. We have Wall of Omens. We have Shatter Skull Smashing. I think we need to mulligan this hand. Like, it's okay, but we have definitely better hands than that. I'll keep this. I'm going to put back Flicker Wisp. We're going to work off of the strength of Impulse and Spell Pierce to hopefully get us to where we need to go. Opponent starts Lumbering Falls tapped. We draw a Counterspell. Play Island. Pass the turn. Opponent untaps. Ancestral freaking Recall. Well, if there was ever a Spell Pierce target. Alright, we untap. We draw Force. Play a Mountain. Pass the turn. Opponent untaps. So if our opponent casts anything we need to deal with, we impulse first and then probably force. And we can decide what to pitch based on whatever we get off of impulse. Dryad's threatening, but I don't know if it's the end of the game threatening. We are going to impulse here. I think we got to take the land. Rest of the bottom. If I force, I think I pitch Venser here. Yeah, I'm going to. Simply because I don't really have anything else going on. And I think a delay tactic against my opponent here is not going to be great. We'll play an island to leave up counterspell. If my opponent doesn't play anything, then obviously we'll play a plains and leave up double blue for counterspell again. Nissa gains them a land, and they haven't played a land yet this turn. It is Planeswalker. I'm going to counter it. We draw Thieving Skydiver. Play Wall of Omens. I'm going to hold on to Thieving Skydiver just in case of artifact mana or a sword. Opponent plays Agadim the Undercrypt, bolting themselves to do so. Into a Leovold Emissary of Trest. Alright, well, we're going to answer this the only way we can. Opponent does get to draw out of this, but hopefully Leovold dies. Perfect. Play an island. I could play the Thieving Skydiver in an attempt to apply pressure, but I don't think that's smart. I'm going to hold out to try and draw a Planeswalker threat or something like that. We've used up like all of our interaction. We did force a duress out of our opponent. It's kind of nice. Opponent plays a Blooming Marsh tapped, then passes. We draw Boros Signet. So play Boros Signet. Pass. We're going to hold on to the Skydiver basically for a while. I would like to draw like Click. Would be good in the current situation. Casualties of War. Well, they took out our red mana. There's Click. So pass the turn. Stop on my opponent's draw step. Click them. Trigon, Predator, and Ancestral Visions. We are not going to take either of those spells. Ancestral Visions is kind of a problem, because they're going to get a bunch of card advantage, but in theory we draw something that matters before then. So my opponent is currently Hellbent. Alright, now we just need to draw up to enough to cast Elspeth. I kind of regret holding the Skydiver now, but alright. 3 turns till my opponent gets an Ancestral Recall. They play Lily. Oh, that's a nightmare. They make us sack. We untap. We draw an island. Play an island. Pass the turn. So we're going to lose Lily this turn. Opponent has a really, really good Sultai deck. I mean, it has Ancestral freaking Recall in it, so we lose Elspeth. I'd really like to draw Big Teferi here, I think. Opponent hits us for 3. We go to 16. Jace, not really what I wanted to draw. Especially considering their current threat has hexproof. I'm going to Fate Seal my opponent. I don't actually think Upheaval is that good. Because it's just, you know what? I think it might be good enough. So, Ancestral Vision's going to tick down. We're upticking Jace just so he would survive a hit from Lumbering Falls. And because if I Brainstormed, I would just have to discard the card that I picked up. Opponent plays Eternal Witness. Picks up Ancestral Recall. Yeah, it's pretty good. In the next 2 turns, my opponent gets to draw 6 cards. 7 cards, because obviously draw step. Opponent plays an Overgrown Tomb. Upticks Lily. Pitches a forest they don't need. Then passes. We get to keep Jace at 5. We draw an island. Time to Brainstorm. Commit to Memory. Avacyn would be good if we could play her. I'm going to put back Avacyn, and I think put a land on top. Play an island, and we'll pass. I kind of want to commit Ancestral Visions. Because, like, it's a long time before they're going to be able to do any of that again. I might have to cast Memory, which is really bad because my opponent has more lands and a board state. And they're going to be able to kill Jace by animating their manland here. Oh, they just kicked Bloodchief's Thirst to kill him. Alright. So that's actually worse because now we're on even more of a clock. I thought my opponent would have to take a turn off of attacking us to kill Jace. And whatever's in our opponent's hand, they want to keep it. So play a land. Memory. We'll each draw a new hand of 7. This actually really sucks because my opponent's hand is great. Almost certainly. I can Chain Lightning to kill Lily here, so I'm going to. We have Force of Negation. Or not Force of Negation, we have Force of Will. To counter any huge spell here. But my opponent's deck is like so much better than mine that drawing them 7 cards was definitely better than us drawing 7 cards. Because their deck is kind of like a Jund sort of deck, where they play a bunch of answers and discard. Alright, that's something that Terra can kill. Gonti. That is a problem. Do I force Gonti? You know what, I'm gonna pitch Thieving Skydiver. They play Leovold, so we tear to destroy Dryad before Leovold resolves to stop our opponent from drawing a card. Then they hit us for 2, we got an 8. We untap, draw Wrath, fire off Wrath. We cannot wait on that, pass the turn. The problem is we're still basically just dead to Lumbering Falls. Opponent replays Nissa, gets a forest out of their deck if they have any. They do. They play the forest, they flip Nissa. They get a 4/4 token, or draw a card, depending on... They get a Shia, animate Lumbering Falls, hit us to 5, and they're going to have 7 power potentially next turn. Yep, alright, that's game. Alrighty, so Sultai Attrition. How the heck do we beat that? Kind of want Revoker. I think I'm going to put in Revoker over Counterspell, even though Counterspell is probably going to be good in this matchup. And then... do I want Gideon? I don't really want, like, the big angels. Avicen's a little bit different because she can act as a board wipe. Man, I also do want to be playing Counterspell. I'm just going to run it back. I really don't know how I would change this to be more effective. I would like to play first. Well, it's a click into a Jace, so I suppose I can't really argue with this hand. I will keep. Not thrilled about it, though. I wish this third island was like a Spell Pierce. Play an island, pass the turn. Opponent starts Swamp, passes. We draw Phyrexian Revoker. I'm going to play an island. I'm going to Revoker Liliana of the Veil. Pass the turn. Opponent plays Agadeem, tapped, then passes. We draw Chain Lightning. Play a Plains, go to combat. Attack for 2. Okay, we hit our opponent for 2 on their draw step. I'm going to click them, so we at least know what's coming up and maybe can plan accordingly. Take a look at our opponent's hand. They have Upheaval, Maelstrom Pulse, Mind Twist, Lily, which was an excellent name on Revoker. We are going to shunt away Mind Twist, because they can't play anything else, though it does give them a chance to draw another green source. It does stop them from basically him Turok-ing us. If they did draw a green source, they would play it there. They may just play out Lily to have her post dealing with Revoker. Okay, they drew Bloodchief's Thirst. We untap, we draw Shatter Skull Smashing, play a mountain, go to combat, attack them with Click for 3. They go down to 15. Play Jace and Brainstorm. I'm going to put back Wrath of God and Shatter Skull Smashing. Pass the turn. If my opponent draws a green source, they may Maelstrom Pulse Jace. If they don't, they'll play Lily. Okay, Lily. Down tick to sack Vendilion Click. They played an island because they're trying to kind of set up for Upheaval. We draw Shatter Skull Smashing. Brainstorm. Put back Wrath of God, Flicker Wisp. Play an island. Chain Lightning Lily. Pass the turn, leave up Venser. We know our opponent's entire hand. They untap. They drew Watery Grave and play it tapped. This way they can Upheaval next turn. I could bounce a land to take them off of that. That may be worth it. I could also just Venser the Upheaval itself. I think bouncing a land right now is better, because I want to put them under a little pressure while I can. I'll bounce Watery Grave. We untap. Draw Flicker Wisp. Brainstorm. Put back Wrath of God. Island. Play Mountain so we can cast Shatter Skull Smashing. Go to combat. Hit them for 2. We're trying to draw a second white source. Cast Thieving Skydiver. Pass the turn. Though if I have to, I can just unsummon Venser to buy him back. Opponent replays Watery Grave tapped. We untap, draw an island. Go to combat. Hit them for 4. Unsummon Venser. Play an island. Yeah. Pass the turn, we'll let them go. They play a Blooming Marsh tapped. Alright. On their end step, Venser. Bounce Blooming Marsh. We don't want them to gain access to Maelstrom Pulse. Go to combat. Attack for 4. This can't go face, unfortunately. Now, we can either unsummon Venser and have a guaranteed turn like that, or we can brainstorm and try to hit a white source, because if we do, we Flicker Wisp. I think we take the sure thing and try and unsummon Venser because we know their whole hand. If they drew instant speed removal, I think they would have used it at a different time. Play an island, pass the turn. Opponent plays a swamp. They're going to try for the upheaval now. So we Venser the upheaval. Actually, we might even just cash in Jace to get another Venser activation. We draw Dak Faden. Go to combat. Attack for 4. Take them to 1. Play Dak Faden. Go looting. Discard Wrath of God and Shatter Skull Smashing. I think because we have Commit to Memory, this is fine now. Play Plains. Brainstorm. I technically did that out of order, but this is fine. Pass the turn. We have Commit to Memory plus Spell Pierce, which should be plenty to answer anything my opponent can play. Because they may just cast Upheaval and we can Spell Pierce for the win. Okay, Spell Pierce. And we got him. Nice. Okay, going into game 3, I don't think I really missed Counterspell all that much. I don't know if we're sideboarding correctly or not, but we're just going to run it back and hope for the best. We have Chain Lightning. No white mana. It kills Leovold. We have a lot of good draws from this hand, but it's really risky. I am disinclined to mulligan against a deck that is playing Lily. Let's see if my opponent kept 7. My opponent kept 7. I'm going to try mulliganing. Alright, we'll keep. Putting back Elspeth. Opponent starts Overgrown Tomb untapped. Probably Mana Dork then? Duress. Alright, Impulse or Boros Signet. Pick your poison. Probably Boros Signet, but I could see Impulse also. But the ability to deny us mana and card and fixing is very important. We draw a click, play an island, pass the turn. Opponent knows we basically have nothing unless we top deck Spell Pierce. Starting off with Hand Hate in that situation was so strong. Opponent plays a forest. We untap and draw land tax, play an island, pass the turn. Now, we could potentially Impulse into a Force if my opponent casts something super scary. They play a forest. So they have Maelstrom Pulse mana. We kind of want a white source. Yeah, we have to skip over all of this for a mountain. Rest of the bottom. Untap. We draw Mox Ruby. Play Mountain. I'm going to hold on to Mox Ruby, even though my opponent does have Hand Hate. And I think I'm going to draw step click them, because I just need some way to interact with them. I could click myself. Alright, hang on. So I can click them on their draw step, I can click them on their end step, or I can click myself on their end step or at any time in response to something. If they play a Planeswalker, playing click after Planeswalker could be good. I think I'm going to click myself. Opponent plays Agadeem tapped. Alright, I was really worried about a Liliana or something here. I'm going to click myself and drop Archangel. We draw Wall of Omens. Untap. We get a Spell Pierce. Go to combat. Attack them for 3. I'm going to play out Mox Ruby. It could be wrong because my opponent could have Artifact Destruction. There's a lot in green, and I might have needed the card in hand. Opponent kicks Blood Chief's Thirst. That's a Spell Pierce. We have to protect our only known form of action right now. No! Turn off auto yields. Okay, well, we didn't do we didn't do some things pre-combat like I probably would have, but we do get to hit our opponent for 3. Now, whether or not we play Land Tax or Wall of Omens, I think we play Wall of Omens. We stand to draw a lot more than holding out on a land tax trigger here. Land tax probably not going to be relevant this game because we've already played a lot of lands. I could sandbag this Arid Mesa, but that means not playing Flicker Wisp. They pulse Vendilion Click because it's our only action right now. We draw Thieving Skydiver. So I am going to play Arid Mesa, fetch with Arid Mesa, get a basic Plains, and I am going to Flicker Wisp my own Wall of Omens. This does draw me a card. And I am going to cast Thieving Skydiver. I really hope... more lands is not really what I wanted. I really hope that my opponent doesn't have like a crazy top-end finisher. Well, they just drew blue mana, so they Ancestraled. But that's all they got right now. We untap. I could have Flicker Wisped Agadeem and they would have actually gotten Stone Rained, but I think us drawing a land was better. I want to keep these lands in hand and play land tax. This is going to be kind of like my Ancestral Recall that thins my deck. Go to combat. Attack for 5. This is potentially worse if my opponent has a Casualties of War, because then they can hit Artifact, Enchantment, Creature, Land. But opponent's going to untap. We're to the point of the game where if we draw either of our burn spells, they're probably going face. We got to try and close this out and hope our opponent doesn't have like some sick finisher. Casualties of War would be pretty legendarily bad for us. Okay, opponent plays a Trigon Predator. While scary, that's not exactly what we were worried about. They play a Blooming Marsh tapped. Okay. So we untap, land tax, get a Plains, Mountain, and Island. We draw Jace the Mind Sculptor. I think Jace on summon here is actually pretty reasonable. We're going to hit our opponent to 2. I mean, in theory, Jace Brainstorm drawing us both of our bolts would be the way to go to victory, but play Jace. Unsummon Trigon Predator. Opponent has an Assassin's Trophy. Okay. That's bad. But we get to keep Jace. Probably because my opponent, once again, has Casualties of War. Which would be omega bad at this point. Because then they could hit Artifact, Creature, Enchantment, Land, Planeswalker. Just absolutely every line of text lit up on that card. And while that would be very good... Okay, opponent replays Trigon Predator. We untap, land tax, get a last island out, so we're basically only drawing non-lands and Colonnade. Shatter Skull Smashing is great here. First we Brainstorm. We can put back lands. Opponent's just dead, because we can Chain Lightning you. They can't redirect it. Then we can Lightning Bolt you. Jace Brainstorm into both bolts! The unlikely line, I called it! It got us the victory! Won us the league! Nice, we get a treasure chest. Well, I had my doubts about that deck because generally control decks without land fixing are pretty terrible. Our treasure chest opens. 5 play points, an Essence of the Wild, and a clone. Not the most amazing treasure chest, but anyway. If you like this video and you want to see more videos like it, please leave a like, drop a comment, subscribe to the channel if you're so inclined. And remember, you can also follow me on Twitch. Same username over there as you find me on here. I stream Wednesdays at 6 p.m. Mountain Time, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, though the last few have been earlier. I hope you all have a wonderful day today, and I want you to know that you're all wonderful human beings. And I really, really appreciate your viewership. We're up to like 814 or 815 subscribers at the time of this video, which is super, super exciting because we're closing in on the goal of 1,000 for monetization, which we're super, super close, and I'm very, very stoked about it. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and yeah, I'll see you in the next one. Bye!